Hi, this is Nuit, and we are talking about conscious parenting, Alchemy of Love course. We're talking about a virtue, truthfulness, and children, and the way we as parents look at truthfulness and teach truthfulness to our children. It is a very interesting one because society has built a weird pattern around us and our growth that encourages different stories that are lies, that encourages us as parents to lie to our children. Now, if you accept society norms, you will accept that you will be lying to your little ones from the very early on. Just to give you some examples of this weird and wonderful behavior that has been instilled within our lives for centuries. We have invented Santa Claus. We have invented Santa Claus deliberately to give our little ones a bit of excitement about Christmas, to give our little ones a bit of excitement about presents that mysteriously appear behind their doors, to give our little ones a bit of story that is incredible and yet full of wonders. Now, giving little ones stories that are incredible and full of wonders is beautiful, but lying to our little ones is tricky. We have also invented fairies, tooth fairies, that come during the night and take the tooth from our little ones and then leave a penny for a tooth, causing a huge happiness within our children. Because trying to see the fairy that takes the tooth is something very exciting. We have created these little stories to enhance our children's imagination, not thinking about the consequences of these stories onto our little ones' brains, not thinking that lying to our little ones, we actually break the trust that exists between the little one and the parent. Now, let's look at some other stories. We are full of stories where we don't actually believe that a little one has right to know, that a little one has enough power to take on the truth, whatever the truth is. So I was entering a shop and my little one was saying, I want this little machine, I want to go on it, I want to do whatever the little machine was doing to measure his weight. I said, no, you will not do it today. And the lady behind the counter quickly said, the machine is broken, wanting to help this whole scene between a mother and her child, seeing that the child is getting disturbed because he's not going onto the machine. Now, behind me was another little girl who also wanted to go on the machine. As soon as she said the machine is broken, the little girl behind my son jumped onto the machine and inserted some money and started doing what she pleased. It was obvious that if I followed the story of this shop assistant, I would be lying to my child, I would have lost the trust of my child. Now, our world is so full of these stories that are made for kids and stories that are made for grown-ups. The stories that are made for kids are truthful and are not truthful, are deceiving or not deceiving. You can choose to behave truthfully with your little one, or you can choose to behave as a lot of mothers choose to behave, in introducing all sorts of little lies within their lives, losing the golden thread that exists between parents and children, losing the thread of trust. Now, I was very determined not to talk lies with my children. I was very determined to tell them the truth. I was very determined to tell them that euro they will find for their tooth underneath the pillow is the euro that I have put there. But it doesn't mean that fairies and angels do not exist. That doesn't mean that there is not a different level of consciousness that we are not able to see or experience with our senses. I would encourage their mind. I would encourage their little brains to think, to experience those different levels of consciousness in a different way. I didn't want them to associate fairies with a tooth fairy that will disappear after the age of 4. I didn't want them to associate their good works, rewards and punishments with Santa Claus. I didn't want them to associate Christmas with presents and Santa Claus, who actually comes or doesn't come depending on how good or not good the child was. That sounded too much as a blackmail in my mind. I wanted them to know that during Christmas we remember Christ, and that during Christmas we buy presents to each other because we love each other. That Santa Claus has absolutely nothing to do with it. I wanted them to know that I will trust them and love them and believe in them, no matter what kind of good or bad things they've done during the year, that there isn't a judge that watches over them and decides will they get a present or not, depending on how good they were or how bad they were. Somehow these words, good and bad, were also outside of the zone of the words I wanted to use when communicating with my children. Lies were not something I wanted to be part of our communication. Lies were not something I wanted them to hear from me. I wanted them to know that their mom will actually tell them the truth. What truth is, I might decide not to talk about a particular subject in a particular way, but if I decide to talk about it, it will be the truth. It will be the truthfulness that exists as a golden thread between us as a family. And we will be lying down this carpet, golden carpet of truthfulness and honesty, amongst us, we will be training ourselves towards the virtue of truthfulness and honesty, because we believe in those virtues, because it is a training that each one of us needs. It's a training needed for the whole of humankind. We don't need to live in the world that is surrounded by lies. And yet, we do not need to live in a world that it is completely material and centered around senses. So, existence or non-existence of angels is something that we cannot for certainty say. We can feel that angels exist. We can feel that beings as faith exist. We can feel that there are other life forms around us, life forms that are created from our thoughts, or life forms that are created from the energy of love and peace, or life forms that are created from the energy of the clean, the beautiful space that is kept within our churches or temples or prayer spots or meditation halls. That might be the truth. So I will be raising my children as spiritual beings, and yet I will not need to lie to them, because they might one day, when they're 5 or 6, wake up and turn away from all the lies that existed between parents and them and say, I actually don't think there is a trust between you and me. I think you lied to me. I think you lied to me many different times. And I remember. And since I remember, I think that lying is acceptable. So I will respond lying to you. I will respond lying to the teacher. I will respond lying to a friend of mine. I will respond lying. And lying then becomes part of our being. It becomes part of our core. It becomes a part of our core belief. Believe it or not, lying became a part of our core belief. And because some people don't want to have lies as part of their lives, they started to separate the truth from the lie, and they started realizing that some fundamental lies are within their lives, that some fundamental lies are the basis of our religion, that some fundamental lies are basis of our belief in God. And that's where the whole thing becomes difficult, because when we started identifying truth with non-existence of God, or identifying truth with non-existence of Christ, or identifying truth with non-existence of miracles, and yet it is not necessary to be that way. It is not necessary to mix the lies with the existence of God or Christ, the lies with the existence of angels and heaven and fairies. There are so many lies that exist within our myths and legends. There are so many lies that exist amidst our core beliefs. There's so many lies that at one point when we shed all those lies, we feel naked. We say, Mamma mia, is it possible that God perhaps doesn't exist? Is it possible that Christ was never born? Is it possible that Buddha never did all the miracles? And it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to have lies as part of our core beliefs, and yet we could believe in the existence of Christ energy, in love that Christ shares amongst us. We can believe in God, even though we don't believe in existence of heaven and eternal hell. We can believe in Buddha and his miracles, even though we do not believe in many different myths and legends that were invented around his existence. We do not need to have lies in between us and our kids. Lies are not necessary. Train truthfulness and honesty from the very young age could be a beautiful spiritual practice for parents as much as for children. Training truthfulness and honesty amongst all members of the family could be a wonderful spiritual exercise that exists between all members of the family. Training truthfulness, honesty, and openness are virtues that could help us become beautiful, inspired, confident adults later on in the adulthood age of our children.